Alright, y'all, welcome back to AP World History. This is going to be Unit 2, Day 9. Some reminders before we get started, as always. Make sure you have your history notebook out and you're taking notes as you move through the video. And make sure that you complete the vocabulary for this video, which will be on the next slide and down in the description. So our key terms today are going to be San Juan Diego, Virgin de Guadalupe, Mercantilism, Hacienda, Castas Systems, Peninsulares, Creoles, Mestizos, Mulatos, Zambos, French Indian War, Bourbon Reforms, Pueblo Revolt, and the Stono Rebellion. Key concepts today are going to be economic characteristics of Iberian-controlled Latin America, Iberian racial makeup, changes in religion in Latin America during the early modern period, and revolts in Latin America during the early modern period. So let's talk about some kind of economic developments in the New World for the Spanish and Portuguese, really. So, due to the discovery of silver in Central America, especially Mexico, northern and central Mexico, silver becomes more plentiful than gold. And this is really why the Spanish become one of the most wealthy countries in the world during this time. There are two major sites for this silver mining, which is going to be Zacatecas in Mexico and Potosi in Peru. Now, what's the significance of all these silver? Well, 1/5 of all the silver mined in the New World goes to the Spanish treasury. This is going to pay for the Spanish military and the government so that the New World can operate without kind of the effects of the Black Legend, and there's an oversight and people aren't being abused. This is also going to lead to the price revolution, where it devalues the price of silver, causing rapid inflation. Silver is also going to play a major role in Asian markets for luxury goods. But again, due to the influx of silver, this is going to lead to massive inflation. But Spanish Americas were largely agrarian, meaning they're agricultural, with several coastal plantations which are going to produce cash crops. Sugar, coca, coffee, eventually tobacco, and this is going to require a lot of slave labor. Now, the trade for Iberia, both Spain and Portugal, are going to be very mercantilistic, meaning that they have a mother country, and that mother country produces finished goods and runs the baby country, or the baby colony. Their textile industries, they had sheep, or woolens, developed from sheep ranching, leather from cattle, cotton produced by the native population, are also woven into textiles. For Portugal, Brazil is going to be a sugar colony. That's going to be their biggest export, and their entire life is going to revolve around that sugar mill. Brazil is also going to rely increasingly on slave labor. And what else also found in Brazil? Gold, which leads to a gold rush, which means a massive movement of people to find this gold to become wealthy. We also have a movement from Brazil into Central America of rancheros, which are just kind of sheep herders. They're kind of cowboys in the kind of modern sense, and they're going to move from Brazil to Central America in the plains to herd sheep. Now, the Spanish and Portuguese are going to set up a racial-based caste system, called a Castas System, and this is purely based on your racial background. It's very similar to the Hindu caste system, but there's no religion involved. At the top, we have Peninsulares, who are whites born in Europe. We have Creoles, who are whites born in the Americas. The Creoles are going to be the real basis for a lot of the revolts and revolutions that take place later, because they really get tired of the Peninsulares taking all the good government roles. We have Mestizos, who are white and American Indians. We have Mulatos, which are white and African American. We have Zambos, who are American Indian and African American. And of course, then we have American Indian, then African American. In North America, there's a greater gender balance among settlers, and you can marry with your own group. French traders often married in with native women, and this is more for trade, and so they can have enough and have more influence in their trading with the Native Americans. The English were very distasteful or disdainful of interracial marriages, and they really didn't do it. And it was, if you did marry into a native culture, a native woman, or even a native man, which is very frowned upon, it was considered something called quote unquote going native. Now, religions in the Americas. Spanish missionaries are going to introduce Catholicism. Missionaries are going to record the languages and traditions of the kind of native people. The church is going to teach the Native Americans farming and herding, and they do become sort of a protector of Indians because they recorded and they actually attempted to learn the language and attempted to actually integrate with the native population. Our next big one is going to be the Virgin de Guadalupe. In 1451, a gentleman by the name of Juan Diego is going to have a vision of the Virgin of Guadalupe, and he's going to see a vision of her crushing a snake, which is a symbol for the Aztecs. And this happens 41 years before Christopher Columbus discovers America. Right? So, it's the Virgin de Guadalupe, even today, is still a symbol of a national symbol of the Mexico people, and even a symbol of Mexico today. The French and English missions were less successful. English colonists had little interest in converting indigenous people. Prayer towns where they would invite the Native Americans to English-speaking villages and speak the Bible at them in English, which the Native Americans don't know, so it doesn't work. The French missionaries worked actively to kind of learn the language and integrate, but they only met with some success. Especially in Spanish and Portuguese-controlled areas, native religions often survived underground, disguised, where they would, disguised meaning they would adopt the saints of Catholicism, leading to some syncretism, and they would kind of keep the Spanish from kind of attacking them, because the Spanish at this time are also going to develop something known as an Inquisition, where they're going to attack in Catholic lands anything that's not Catholic. So native religions survived because they adopted parts of Catholicism just enough to keep the Spanish from wiping them out. The church and the royal government are allies. They're going to establish universities, schools, towns, and frontier areas. They're going to run many of the social intellectual activities in the colonies. Again, they're going to establish universities in Mexico City and Lima, which are organized and run by the church. They're going to introduce printing presses and really begin to kind of modernize and Western Europeanize the New World. They're going to attempt to. But the Spanish are really going to kind of persecute any Protestants, Jews, heretics, dissenters. They're going to be persecuted by the Catholic Inquisition, or the Spanish Inquisition, which is really going to push for a true kind of Catholicism in these areas. Now, there's going to be several reforms that are going to take place. In Spain, we have something called the Bourbon Reforms. These are going to be the Spanish reforms. The king is going to move by economic nationalism. He's going to make it more. He's going to make the economy and government more centralized. He's going to allow monopolies, royal charters. He's going to liberalize trading guidelines, make it more in the hands of the traders and the people running these areas. Also, at the same time, they're also going to really crush non-Catholic groups in the New World, such as the Jesuits. He's also going to spend more money on better defense, military arrangements, creating local units using native populations to defend their areas. Right. There's also going to be new colonies that are going to set up during this time. California, Chile, Texas. and this is really going to be more of Spain trying to consolidating and controlling the New World, and militarily, population-wise, and economically. The papal reforms are going to be Portugal, and they're really going to pursue mercantilism and autocratic reforms from the top down. Brazil becomes the centerpiece for this reforms. Monopolies are created to exploit areas and to get more money. This is going to have a large importation of slaves, which is going to increase production. Cotton and coca are introduced to get more money. And they're actually going to restrict the church's influence in Brazil so that they could use the native population as slaves. So they're really going to start taking some plays out of the Spanish playbook in order to increase their money. Changes in North America at this time, of course, we're going to have the French-Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, which is going to be won by the English. Due to this, England gets control of Canada and India, and the 7 Years' War really makes England become the dominant power after the war in the world. Well, not everyone's going to like this. Americans begin to resent distant control. We have tax revolts after the 7 Years' War. This is going to be the Stamp Act, Boston Tea Party, and other kind of North American revolts. Slaves revolts are not uncommon. They happen with some frequency. They're going to happen more. Revolts against, mercantilistic policy controls. Tupac Amaru, which is the last Incan emperor, is going to lead an Incan Indian revolt in Peru to kind of reestablish the Incan dynasty. He's going to be defeated fairly quickly, and that'll be the end of the kind of Incan revolts and dynasties. Of course, this is going to lead up to the American Revolution, many acts, and then actual rebellion. Some more revolts. We have resistance to European rule. Local resistance from American Indians are going to be the Pueblo Revolt. This is going to be a North American revolt in New Mexico in 1680, where 400 Spanish are going to be killed. They're going to destroy churches, and eventually the Spanish militaries will mobilize and put down this revolt. In the slave revolts and slave rebellions, this is kind of one of the first ones. It's not the biggest, but this is going to be the Stono Rebellion in South Carolina. It's going to be 1739, where 25 to 50 whites are killed. As a result of this rebellion, states start to pass more strict slave laws known as slave codes, where now during that slaves cannot learn to read and write. They have to have passes to go into town. They become very, very controlled, and it kind of harshens the slave lifestyle after 1739 in the New World, or really in the North American New World. That's where we're going to end for today. Please make sure that you are following along in your notes, and that you complete the vocabulary for this video, which is the beginning of this video, and down in the description as always. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in class.